For our third module, we're going to create full and half sections. We're going to take a look at creating full sections on a simple part. We're also going to create a full section on a little bit more complicated part and use the depth method. And also we're going to create a simple half section. So that's our goal for this module. So let's go in and create and edit full and half sectional views. We've created drawing views from AutoCAD and Autodesk Inventor. Now let's take it a step further and let's take a look at creating full and half sections. I can go in and create 4 different type of sectional views in AutoCAD 2013. Of course, full and half, offset and aligned. And I am going to show you how to create a cutting plane line from an object. Again, these views are based off the model that we have created. And notice the UCS is positioned in the world coordinate system with my part positioned for top view, front, or right side view. Again, that's one of the tricks that I use, is try to position my part in relationship to the world coordinate system. So what we need to do is to go in and create a multi-view drawing. In this case, we're going to create a top and a front. The front view will be the full section with label and an isometric view. I want to call your attention to the AutoCAD Help menu. So let's look at some of the terminology. First of all, we do have the section view, which has section lines or section lining or crosshatch in that section view. In this case, the top view is the section view. It also has that section view label. And we talked about that in a previous module of how we can change and modify the size of the text, etc. We also went in and looked at where in the front view they call it a section line. But we really want to call that the cutting plane line, as it says in the styles dialog box, when we can go in and change the cutting plane line style, whether it be a phantom line or long dashes, or change the identifiers. We have the ability to change that in those styles. So again, knowing the terminology that AutoCAD uses is only a plus. We can also look at component participation. So if we were sectioning through an object that was an assembly, pins, bolts, nuts do not get sectioned. So we can remove those, which Autodesk calls the component participation in section views. So you want to take a look at this in the Help menu. And we can also project views from a section view. So if our front view or our left side view was an offset section and we created the section view in the front, we can project off of that so that front section view or section AA becomes the parent of the isometric view, that section, or another view projected orthogonally. So you have the ability to project from the section view. Let's go in and let's create some section views. Let's go in and create a full section. First thing that I'm going to do is to make sure that my orientation of my part is the way I like it. So if you think back to the drafting days, we would know that the most critical contour of a part usually is in the front view. So what I've done here, and now this, let's be honest, this is not a real critical part, but what I've done is I've set my UCS up so my plan view or my top view is what I want for my top, and then my front view is set accordingly. So if you set your 3D model or assembly based on the world coordinate system's orientation, your views will align the way you think they should. But again, remember, you can always come back and reset the orientation while you're creating different views. And we're doing this for the section views just like we did when we created our orthographic views or other multi-view drawings. So I'm going to select my ANSI A sheet of paper. So in my layout, I need to create a base view from model space from my AutoCAD 3D model. but I notice that my orientation isn't right. So I can come down into command line and change the orientation, or I can come up to the orientation panel in the Drawing View Creation tab and select top. Yep, that's my plan view. That's my top view of what I want. And I'm just going to go ahead and place that. I like it. I'm going to click OK. And now notice that I can go ahead and project my other views. So if I wanted to come down and project the front view, I could have the front view projected from my top view. But that's not what I want. I want to use a full section view in place of the top view. So I'm just going to go in and press enter. I'm going to zoom this up a little bit so we can see it a little bit better, and I'm going to create a full section. And a full section cuts the object in half. So I'm going to go ahead and select that top view with my running object snaps set and my tracking set. I'm going to come over and track to place my cutting plane line. Now again, AutoCAD calls it a section line. Drafting terms, it's a cutting plane line. So I'm going to bring this down, and in place of the front view, I'm going to place a full sectional view. And there it is. But one of the things about placing views and doing the drawing views as we've done before, again, is to change the section identifier. And I noticed that the scale is just way off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to the parent view, and I'm going to go ahead and select the view scale and change that to 1:4. So as we selected that triangle, we were able to change the scale to 1:4. And that's what I really need for this drawing. Next, I need to go in and create an isometric projected view. So I'm going to go into project and projected view off of this front view. And this now becomes the parent view for that projected view. I'm just going to go ahead and press enter to accept it. And let's take a look at that new view. So the view was derived from the front view. The front view, which is a section view, a full section view, was derived from the top view. But I just noticed something. The hatch pattern, or the section lining, or the cross hatching is wrong. It's supposed to be aluminum and not steel, standard steel, or a standard pattern, which is ANSI 31 that's used all the time. This is an aluminum part. I need ANSI 38. So I'm going to come in and select that hatch pattern in that front view. And remember, the views are drawing views. I'm going to come up to the top, just like we do in 2D AutoCAD drafting, and select ANSI 38. And when I select ANSI 38, I do want to call your attention to the front view as the pattern has changed. I can also go in and select the multi-function hatch grip to change the origin point, or the hatch angle, or the hatch scale. So just like we do in 2D drafting, we can create and modify these hatch patterns based on what we do in 2D drafting. Also, I want to call your attention to is the isometric model. And in that isometric model, notice that the hatch pattern changed also. So, if you change the parent, the child changes. If you change the child, what happens to the parent? One more thing that I would like to do is I'm going to go ahead and select the isometric view, and I'm going to come up to Edit View on the Edit panel. So I selected my model, and what I want to do is to change to Shaded with Visible Lines. So now I have Shaded with Visible Lines, and I'm going to go in and click OK. So again, I'm looking at a different visualization of the way I want my model to look. Another thing that I can do is to change the way the 3D isometric full section model looks. So I'm going to go ahead and select on that, and you know what? I don't want it to be sectioned anymore. So I'm going to go into Edit View, and I can come in to Cut Inheritance and turn off the section cut. And now my model looks like a solid 3D model. So again, you have different options in the way you can create your full section. So when you get a chance, give it a try. Let's go in and create another full section. But on this full section, let's use some different methods, and you'll see what I mean by method. I'm going to select my ANSI B layout and go to my base view from my Model Space AutoCAD part. I'm going to change the orientation to top and select the top view of where I'm going to place that, and just select a couple returns because my full section will be in the front view. So I'm going to go in and select full, select that part, use tracking to establish my full section line, track across, making sure the distances are about equal, bring it down, and now I am placing my front view. And I'm just going to press enter, and there's a full section of that view. Now one of the things I can do is select my cutting plane line, and I can move my cutting plane line wherever I want to on that part, and you could see by moving the cutting plane line how my view changes. Well, of course we don't want to do that, but I just wanted to show you the ability to move the cutting plane line. Now I said about methods. In the front view, in this scale here of 1 to 4, I like the scale. I don't like where the label is placed, so I'm going to move that label maybe up a little bit. There it is. So I position it a little different position. But also what I don't like is I don't like the feet on the bottom. Those feet that are showing and the legs in the back, I just don't want to see that in the view. So let's see what methods I can use to modify that view. So I'm going to select that front view, and as soon as I go into Edit View from the Edit panel, I notice that I have a pick called Full, Slice, and Distance for the method. And so right now I'm in a full projection method. If I go into Slice, notice what happens when I select Slice. It sort of slices away the geometry that's all behind it and leaves what the cutting plane line touches. Think of that hot knife through butter, and what it selects, that's what you get. Well, that's not what I want in this case. I want distance. And you can see I can move my distance line anywhere back away from the cutting plane line. I can't move it forward, won't let me, but I can go backwards. And in this case, what I want to do is I want to attach that to the quadrant of this back line right here. And I do want to call your attention back up to the top under Method panel, where it says my distance away from the cutting plane line is 1.25 units. And I'm going to press enter. Let's see what my front view looks like. My front view looks like that. Now, the first thing you're going to say is, well, Jay, you did get rid of the back legs like you wanted in the feet, but you've got this extraneous line that just showed up. Well, okay, so a little kludgy little fix here is if I go ahead and select that view again, go to edit the view, I know that 1.2501, see if I move that back just a super small distance, 100th, 1,000th, a 10,000th back, just a hair off, I slice away all the material behind that. And in this view, it works. Now, I've done this exercise before, and when I've placed the line across the top, like we did before, that depth line, I did not get that extraneous line down the middle. So it was unique that in this case it happened. But I did know the workaround. I just cheat a little bit, and it works. So that's an example of using a different method when you create a section view. I think we need to add that isometric view and project off that front sectional view that we just created. And let's see how that isometric view will actually be created. So I'm going to go into projected. I'm going to select that view, that front view, and then project out for the isometric. And yes, That's pretty much what I expected would happen, because remember, we use the depth method. I'm going to select the isometric view, and I'm going to change the scale to 1 to 2 so it's a little bit better for us to visualize, a little bit easier. And then I think I'm going to make another modification, and I'm going to edit the view by changing its cut inheritance. So I'm going to go in and take the section cut off, click OK, and there's my drawing. So I was able to take that front full section view, create that isometric, and use cut inheritance to give me the full isometric view, because the isometric view that we did receive in the first place, quite frankly, just wasn't right. After we created our full section, in our old drafting classes or beginning CAD classes, our next sectional view that we would study would be a half section. And again, remember back in the days where we would just create all the construction geometry and hatch pattern and have to do a manual process to create that. Well, as with a full section, we can come in and create a half section. I do want to call your attention to the UCS icon. And I'm going to go into a plan view, a top view, and notice the orientation again of how I've orientated the part or the assembly, if we had an assembly, in relationship to the world coordinate system. That's just one of those tips and techniques that I try to do, is to make sure my part is in the orientation that I like based on the WCS. So that's just a tip if you'd like to do that. Now we know we can change the orientation at any time, but old school technique is one that I've used for many years. I'm going to go into ANSI A and do a base view from my model space AutoCAD model. And again, it's coming in at the view that I do not want. If I go down to the word orientation down in the command line, I can make that change, or I can come up to orientation up in the ribbon on the orientation panel of the drawing view creation ribbon. So I'm going to go ahead and select top like we did before for the full section, and I'm going to place that half section. I'm just going to go ahead and exit out. So I've got my top view. I need to project down a half section. So I'm going to go into section, select half, and select the view that I want to create that half section from. Again, I want to use my tracking, and my tracking is set on. My object snap is on, my running object snap. So I'm going to place the first point, my second point will be right on center, and as I draw that cutting plane line, and I'm going to go ahead and place that front view, which will become, of course, my half section. And there it is. The first thing that I noticed is that my scale is off. I'm going to go in and modify and change that. And as you can see the workflow as we place our views, if something isn't set correctly, we need to go back and edit them. So really what I'm showing you is the good workflow to go in and modify and edit those. I always like to go back to the parent. I'm going to go in and select the view scale, and I'm going to set 1 to 4. I need to go in and create a projected isometric view from the front sectional view. So I'm going to go in and project from that front view a nice isometric view, and I like that projection. Notice the hatch pattern of ANSI 31 is applied. So what I can do next is again add and modify that view as needed. So let's see how we do that. I'm going to go ahead and select on that view. I'm going to come up to Edit View in the Drawing View Edit panel. And I'm going to go in and change my shaded with visible lines to see how that isometric view changes. And that's the appearance that I would like. Well, maybe you don't want the section lines. So can we turn off the section lines in that isometric view? Well, the answer is yes. If I come in, go to Edit View, I could come in and turn off Show Hatching. So maybe what you're looking for is a isometric view that does not show the hatch patterns on that view. And again, that's just another method for visualization. And you know what? I don't really need this view cut away. I want to see the whole view. So I can go into my cut inheritance and turn off my section cut, and that will turn off that cutting plane line that goes through that top view to create that half section. And I'm just going to go in and click OK. Oh, but wait, I know you want me to put that back. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to go to edit the view, I'm going to go cut inheritance, I'm going to click it back on, click OK, and there it is. So for those of you who are thinking, can we put it back on? Well, of course the answer is yes. So hopefully this gives you a good idea of how to do a half section.